A really common question amongst newer lenders is, who should I hire first? I'm getting a little busy. Who should my first hire be? We're going to shortcut all of it for you right now.
Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Hadding. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com. Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Hadding. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey, so if you have been following the podcast for a while and you want to take the next step and work with us in person, come to our annual summer mastermind in June here in Maryland. To learn more, just go check it out at hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, talk to our team to learn all about the event. All right, so the first hire. There's a few different answers to this. A few different answers, but some of them are more common. We're going to go through a few factors here, but it's natural for this to happen, whether you're one person running the company or two business partners. Maybe you're going to get to a point where the transactional work starts to weigh on you a little bit and you want to offload some of the things, retain the more important stuff. We're going to talk about both sides of that on today's pod.
Yeah. And Chris and I sometimes have different views on first hire. We'll go through why that is, and you can obviously determine what's best for you. It depends on your budget. It depends on what you want to personally spend your time on, not spend your time on. It's one of those things that's pretty labor intensive after you start doing a bunch of deals and a handful of deals, just because there's a lot of, paper and keystrokes that potentially have to get put together. But after it's kind of learned, right? Like at the beginning, oh, I don't have a loan app. I have to go stay up all night and I got to build a loan app and I got to build a website. I got to do some of these things. After a lot of that infrastructure is done and in place, a lot of that stuff's kind of rinse and repeat. I mean, just for some context, we have one processor that can process up to 30 loans a month. We don't typically do up to 30 deals every month, but like processing 20 plus deals every month. And our one controller can do 250, loans a year in, servicing loans. And I mean, we have room to scale. If we did more and more deals, they could handle that. So don't be overwhelmed. I talked to somebody in the past and they thought their processor was in the weeds with 5 deals. And it's like the first 5 deals, yes, they're going to be in the weeds on. Year one, we did 18 or 20 something deals and low 20 deals. And like I do 2 deals a month and I was in the weeds, right? Because I didn't, that's
Right.
what it is.
Normal at the beginning.
Yeah. So you get out of that. And here's kind of the challenge, because the hires that we just mentioned, processor and a bookkeeper or a loan servicer, those are really the two big things that take up a lot of time, right? You want to be out there finding deals, raising capital, structuring deals, meaning relationships, business development, right? That's what you want to focus. Those are high, worth activities as you want to focus on. You don't want to focus on, coordinating with the title company or processing payments or things like that. That's where you can get a bookkeeper or a processor, a loan servicer to do that. The challenging thing is both of those positions, they kind of mesh with their actual personality type. And what I mean by that is somebody who's good at servicing loans, processing payments, reconciling bank accounts, doing bookkeeping, typically has a C personality type, an analytical personality type, and that's what you want. And then someone who's processing loans, front-facing with the borrower, communicating with the borrower, coordinating stuff, they usually have a personality type that's a little bit more outgoing, front-facing, working with clients, enjoying clients, talking to clients. So that's the one challenge. And when I say challenge, if you're in a position that you can hire both, that's great. But if you only have to pick one hire, it gets a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, I mean, there are some caveats here. So like part of that is based on our staff. It just so happens that Terry, our portfolio manager, which is basically processor, is a very warm and friendly and outgoing and likable person. But they don't necessarily have to be that. Like they honestly, in all fairness, could just be sending emails and prepping the file. Like they could be just that, which is more of like the standard kind of accountant personality, which is, analytical, like you were saying before. Also, another caveat here is nowadays, and this isn't our exact setup, but nowadays with the way the softwares are structured, like whether you're on Lender, TMO, even Automator, if you combined those two roles into one, they're working in one system, which is
Yep.
pretty cool if you think about it, right? So like a lot like Lender, for example, like they're originating there, doing term sheets, everything else, storing documents, right? Collecting the borrower docs, the third party docs and valuations and everything. And then also through closing, going to the back end of servicing and moving money around. They're still in one software. So that kind of lends itself better if you are looking to make that first hire do both of those roles. So their processor prepping everything for closing, interfacing with the borrower, title company, insurance agent, getting things ready for closing, and then moving on to the back end where they're putting in their investors and doing funding and moving money around on servicing. They'll be in one system, besides bank account and what have you.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider too. If you are looking to merge those two roles into one, that is a common first hire. It's not always like you were saying though when you started. It's not always going to gel that easily, depending on the person you put into that role.
Yeah. And I think at the beginning, you really gotta have one person, not two people. I don't think most people are in a position
Yeah.
where they can support two people, and you get what you pay for. Like, we've gone through the minimum wage or part-time or, 40-ish, $50,000 salaries, and that just the it wasn't the right fit for us. As soon as we started getting over higher level of qualifications, and that didn't mean when I say qualifications, that doesn't mean like, our bookkeeper, our controller is like a CPA, right? That doesn't mean that some of these people have even real estate or private lending experience, because I actually don't believe you need the experience. And sometimes it's a detriment to have the experience because they have bad habits because they're used to the mortgage industry, that traditional mortgage industry. The qualification is you have to know how to think. That's really the qualification. You're gonna get stuff thrown at you, and you gotta understand how to think and how to do things to do so. You know, I do agree that you can have one person to do this, and keep in mind, when you're a small operation, you're a startup. Like, everyone play wears different hats and different roles. So that person
Right.
might be processing loans, and that person might be collecting payments and helping with construction draws. Then they might be doing a marketing flyer for you, or you're speaking at a RIA or a meetup a group, and maybe they're there to help with that as well. I'm not saying they have to mandatorily do that. The point is it's a grind. You're all doing it together. So all of that stuff has to be taken in consideration. There's not we've always our all of our employees that we've had from the beginning, and I mean, 20 years in, we're still a small business. They
Right.
overlap tasks. There's no like, oh, that's not my department. Like, there's no hierarchy that we have on stuff, right? Everyone has their own roles and they overlap when needed. If there's something that comes up, they jump in and they do that. It's not like, oh, well, I live in QuickBooks, that's all I can do, or I live in the servicing software, that's what all I do. Like, there's a lot of things that happen, and different things are added. I was talking to a few mastermind members, two mastermind members actually this morning, and one of the things that we were talking about, and we kind of started the show with this, is you get kind of accustomed to processing loans or servicing loans, and it's labor intensive on the front end because you have to create the process, you got to learn how to do it. You got to know where in the system to go put the monthly payment in, right? You got to learn it. But after you do it, it's very repetitive. And it's just like originating and underwriting loans. It's just a widget. They're all the same, right? So, it's one of those things that, somebody's worried that they can't handle the job. They can handle the job. And you can, it's one of those things that as you grow, they'll grow with you. And even if you're only doing a few deals on the front end or right now, they'll grow with you and they'll be able to handle the deal flow. Like, there's no reason to have lots and lots and lots of different employees to do a lot of these tasks. It can be handled. And to be honest, if you're a one or two man or woman operation, one employee should be able to get you to the $10 million deployed, $10 million a year in production mark, if not more, Potentially, you could even do more volume with that. So you don't really have to be overstaffed with this, which is the nice thing. One of the nice things about this business.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple examples of first hire. So the way we did it was our first full-time hire was the accountant, bookkeeper. I was our first accountant. I was ready to get rid of that and all the keystrokes and everything else. And mind you, like when I was doing that, it was QuickBooks and spreadsheets, and we had like an invoicing system basically for like monthly payments. But there were a lot of keystrokes going on, and we coincided that first full-time accountant hire with our first loan servicing software, right? So it was like, new employee, here's your role, here's what the job description looks like, here's what you do every, like throughout the month according to a calendar. And here's this new out of the box servicing system, not the one we're on now. It's kind of like a, you know, not as good of a solution, but that all coincided with one. Learn this stuff, it's going to do more, it's going to move money faster, more efficiently, reporting. That's the way we did it. I know that some people in the mastermind group, they hired the processor first and kept control of the money, the movement of money for a while, which I totally understand. Um, a couple notes on that. It's not uncommon to have somebody in the processor role prepping everything for closing, interfacing with the third parties, like I was saying, and then for one of the owners to still be moving the money, doing the servicing, stuff like that. Um, Again, it's gonna depend on the personality type of the people involved, what the owner wants to do, and then also other controls. So, like, we have certain controls in place, even though our controller is doing all the keystrokes related to moving money, Jason and I have to approve all of the transactions. Like earlier today, we had an outgoing ACH with over 800,000 from some loan payoffs, interest payments, stuff like that. I approve that transaction, right? So if any owners are out there being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna hand over complete control of all the money, millions of dollars, whatever it might be, to a newly hired accountant," it's not exactly the way it is, right? It's
Yeah.
not like they just have all control. Like, either Jason or I have to approve every outgoing wire for a loan funding, like, anything is being approved by us. If it's we don't do that many checks anymore, but if there are checks going out, one of us has to sign them, right? So there are still controls in place. I'm sure there are lenders that are hearing this thinking like, I wanna hire a bookkeeper to do the keystrokes, but I don't wanna take on too much risk by putting them in charge of all the money. It's not exactly like that. There are normal controls in place for that exact reason.
All right, one more thing that I think would be a question that people would have before we wrap up this episode is what about business development, marketing, business generating help, investor relations help, raising capital? Now, we kind of look at that as, you know, business owner activities. That's just how we've always done it. But I understand that, you know, not everybody wants to raise capital themselves or do investor relations or do underwriting, do business development and marketing. All of those people, in theory, could be hired. I just think those are harder positions to find, number one. And number two, expensive positions to find. It's challenging to find
Right.
somebody that's going to do business development for you, especially on 100% commission without a salary. It is a hard position to find, right? Somebody that is doing, and I'm not trying to diminish keystrokes or employee activities, but that's more of a personality type that wants kind of a stable income that you have a good month, you have a bad month, they make the same amount of money, right? Like they know what they're signing up for. If you're a business development person, like, you're eating what you kill. And if you don't find a deal that month, you're not making a paycheck that month. So, as a startup or a newer company, it's challenging to find that particular person just because, like, they're just not gonna be able to make a ton of money, right? So, we've always had challenges over the years trying to find that right party or that right person to do that. So, it kinda defaults to you as the entrepreneur, business owner, lender, newer hard money lender to start in that position or work with somebody else in that position until you kind of grow it a little bit. And again, that doesn't mean that you can't find somebody to do some of those things. It's just a more challenging position because there's just not a big enough budget for you. Like if you were going to hire a really, really good salesperson right off the bat, like they're going to want 6 figures probably to do so. And it's a hard job. And they're just not going to make that money right away just based off closed deals. Now, if you're a good marketer and you have a lot of deal flow coming in and you can give deal flow to people, that's a different story, right? Like we've had more success with doing the heavy lifting and generating business and handing it out to our partners, to our loan officers and things like that. That's kind of an easier, better way for them, but that's challenging on your end as well in order to do that. So, and again, you can hire marketing agencies. You can hire agencies to help you raise capital. Like, I'm not stating that you have to do all those things. We just have always found it easier to learn that and implement that and do that ourselves before bringing in people.
In summary, everyone, if you're looking to make your first hire, I would make it either the controller who's going to be moving all of the money related to loan servicing, or that processor that's prepping every file to get it ready for close, possibly even a combination of the two. Software is going to help you a lot working through Lender, TMO, Automator, so that both of those roles can be on one system and get really used to it, really good at it. And that should be able to carry you just that one role to a $10 million portfolio, right? About 50 loans outstanding, 200K a piece, plus 1 or 2 founders, and you should be able to rock it all the way to 10 million bucks. And if that is your goal, to go to 5 million, 10 million, 20 million beyond, we'd be very interested in working with you in person. We're having a big event here in June, big mastermind group in Maryland. To learn more, go to hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, schedule a time to talk to our team, learn all about the event. We hope to work with you in person, and we'll see you here next time on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this Private Lenders Podcast episode. Please note that opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, financial, and accounting professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we would appreciate it if you could spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 community for all private and hard money lenders.